Good morning, everybody. I'm Pastor Snell, wanting to welcome you to this month's episode of Point of View. Now, today looks a little bit different, but I want you to know that you'll see PJ and Danita in just a little while. For those who don't know, Point of View is where we take a little time to talk about dating, relationships, and marriage, and we try to get a broad point of view. Today is a very critical subject. We're going to be talking to our amazing singles today, and we're going to be discussing the subject deal breakers. What are the things that should help you know it's time to move on in a different direction? What are your deal breakers? You need to have a rubric for how you go about deciphering whether or not you want to continue in relationships. So I need you to know, go ahead and get seated. Don't watch this by yourself. Be a digital disciple. Be an Apple apostle. Make sure you gang watch this with somebody that they might be blessed as well. But before we get into today's subject matter, right now we're going to shift into one of our parables that's going to give you some food for thought. Let's get into it.
No, babe, it's crazy. No, she has to have natural hair.
Well, I mean, that's not that bad.
No. Down her back.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's not.
You know
that's
what?
Not it.
I have a list. I have a full-fledged list. Okay, so it gets better. She has to have hazel eyes, no taller than 5'6", in heels, no previous relationships that lasted longer than 3 years.
Oh, okay, that's doing too much.
And although it's not required, it's suggested that she has a degree in home economics.
Wow, what does that even mean?
It's not me.
No, it's not you, babe. Your brother is being ridiculous. You know, he's always been a little weird, but with these kinds of stipulations, he's just going to end up being single the rest of his life.
Thank you. I'm glad that you agree with me. Now, I don't feel nuts.
No.
I'm thinking this way.
You're not. I'll see you when I get home. Love you.
I love you too. Bye. Oops. Gonna be single forever.
Sis, you know I can hear you, right?
I love the parables. It's actually one of my favorite parts of the show, Point of View. It's always making me laugh, always making me think. I'm thanking God for Danita and her team and how God uses them to feed us through the parables each and every time we come together. But listen, without much further ado, we're going to jump right into the subject matter today, dealing with the issue of deal breakers. And we're going to get started right now with our men's panel.
So the topic for today, gentlemen, deal breakers in dating in 2023.
Man, that's a tough one.
It's a different game from when we were out there.
It's a tough one.
It's different games. So we have Chris and Justin with us today and Pastor Snell. So we're going to get right into it.
Listen, we're glad to have two of Huntsville's most eligible bachelors joining us here.
These two in the middle.
These two in the middle. It's very obvious and clear who they are, and they're going to help guide us in our dialogue today. And we're just here to kind of help shepherd this conversation along.
Yes, because we're not in these streets
We're not in these streets. That's it.
So from your perspective, Chris, what's it like dating in 2023?
I would say it's interesting.
Okay.
You never know what you're going to get yourself into, honestly. I just say take it day to day because you can meet someone, it can be one way, then 2 weeks later, they'll be showing you a whole other side of you. So I think you need to really take your time, pray about it for sure. And you just got to be careful, honestly, because there's a lot of false advertisement. That's the nice way of saying it. True. And you got to, that's the nice way of putting it.
Okay, all right, Justin.
Just kind of touching on what Chris was saying. You got to be careful. Really, there's so many different ways to meet people. That it can be difficult for you to be able to kind of weed out what's real and what's not. So it can definitely be challenging, you know. Like you never know what you can get.
Yeah.
So you just gotta proceed
Like
with
a box
caution.
of busted chocolates.
Yeah, you know, you don't know what you can get when you open the box.
I got you. So you mentioned meeting people. So are we a person-to-person dating, online dating, meeting people on the gram? What?
What you think, Chris?
Well, I like person to person, but I don't think online dating is necessarily bad. I feel like that is an avenue where people, you know, may not have that confidence to be able to go up to approach a person.
Yeah.
So it gives them that opportunity to be able to talk to them and, you know, kind of see what happens from there. And then, you know, if you build up a good foundation, then you meet them in person and you just go from there. But I feel like before you meet somebody, you should at least FaceTime them to make sure those pictures are adding up to what they're.
Some experiences happening here.
For sure.
Just, you know, you got to be careful. You got to be careful.
You know, I think that you got to have a different game approach to each venue that you're going in.
Okay.
You know, like if you're in somebody's DMs, it's you're gonna speak to them a little differently than if you're approaching them in person.
Absolutely.
You know,
Okay.
I have felt like I have more success approaching someone in person than I do getting lost in the DM. You know,
Man,
like
lies and
anybody,
dreams.
yeah, you know, like anybody has access to you on social media, but you know, like if you're the guy that approaches someone in person, you know, like that shows, I feel like it shows courage and charisma, you know, that may make you stand out a little bit more versus, you know, just kind of taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you a quick question, because like one of the concerns I hear sometimes from ladies is that the feeling that guys don't hunt anymore. They don't take initiative. They won't make a move. They're kind of waiting on the young ladies to approach them. And this may not necessarily be you, but like, is there something generational that you think is kind of taking place where you feel like, man, guys are more so waiting for the ladies to approach, or maybe they're just sending text or DM, but just that stepping into a space with a young lady and saying, this is who I am. This is kind of what my intentions are.
I think nowadays, I think people guys especially just have to be able to put in that work and time. I think some people think it's just going to happen in a couple of days and you're going to be in this relationship. And it's, you know, I think television has done a great job of brainwashing individuals thinking that relationship is going to be that easy. But, you know, you got to get to know a person, you know, their likes, their dislikes.
For sure.
You know, and have those genuine conversations with them. And I feel like people just automatically skip from that point to the talking phase to automatically being in a relationship. And the relationship is not going to last without a solid foundation.
You can't skip steps.
Exactly.
Okay, right. That's good work.
100%.
Putting that work in
Justin,
at the beginning.
You want to jump in on that in terms of just?
Yeah, you know, I think the social media can be good and bad.
Okay.
You know, just the fact that you have accessibility to so many people.
Yeah.
You know, like if you lose interest, like you can just go on to the next person.
Exactly.
Versus, you know, like if you only have access to the people that you see on a daily basis, you know, it kind of forces you to have to build genuine connections with those people. And I think that, you know, that is something that could, you know, that we might have seen, that we might see like with our generation. You know, I think that, you know, even with just like, you know, like House of Highlight Reels or whatever, you know, like you tired of watching this one, like you just go to the next one, you know.
So when you're stepping out there, how important is it to know what you want already?
I feel like that is a huge part.
Yeah.
That will save you probably a lot of trouble and time wasted. I just feel like, you know, you should try and go in there with a game plan and, you know,
for sure.
you gotta talk to people. You know, you can't just. I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket. But you know, if you know something is not gonna work, then you should probably be like, okay, this was nice. We just keep going.
We're gonna keep it moving.
I feel like that can be hard sometimes too.
Yeah.
You know, like especially, you know, like when there's so many things that you're attracted to.
Exactly.
And then like there's this major non-negotiable that doesn't check the box, you know, like it can, I feel like especially like for guys, like it can be difficult to just be like, you know, like.
You can be on a good streak. Like 3-4 weeks, I'm calling my mom like, oh man, she's the one. And then she says, and then it was like, well, That was nice. That was
tough
nice.
for real,
It was
man.
a good one.
Mom in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know, right?
We
Good.
have to
It's
reevaluate
tough.
that one.
Man.
So let's get into deal breakers. So are there any things right off the bat immediately she's not for me?
Yeah, that just kills. Like as soon as you see this, you sense it.
Whether
it's
in person,
over.
whether online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of those things for you?
I think probably one of the biggest things for me is just negativity.
Okay.
You know, like
Yes.
there's so much in the world that's gonna bring you down.
Right.
You know, like
Okay.
I don't want to be in a space to where I'm intimate and vulnerable and then feel like I'm also brought down there. So I think just immediately, just like as soon as I start to feel like the negative like vibes, I'm just kind of turned off by that.
Okay.
Chris?
I would say not being supportive. I feel that is a big
that's real.
thing because sometimes even during the talking phase you could be going through some things, and in those moments you can really see like how she truly is.
Okay.
If she's gonna text you, be like, "Oh, okay, well, hope you feel better,"
That's
or tell you, "Okay, well, I'm on my way. Let's talk this out. Like I'm here for you. Like just." And if we're able to, I think that's why some guys aren't vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's
Because when we do open up, sometimes they hurt us. But
That's real.
when you have a girl who has your back, and who's supportive through it all, it makes life a lot easier. It does.
Okay.
It's true.
So anything immediately when you're thinking about dating that you're attracted to in a woman that outside of the 36, 24, 36 guy. You know the basics. That's the basics. But anything that you say, hey, that's something that stands out. That's something that I'm looking for in a woman.
Personality. If she's funny, I'm fun. Like I'm always doing something. I want to have a good time. If we're going on a date, I don't want it to be, boring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want it to just be like I'm starting every conversation. Like especially if she's short, like she gives the one word answers. I'm like, yeah, we can wrap this up.
You
Like,
can wrap it up.
Yeah. But if she has that, if she matches your energy, as they say these days, it makes it fun. You have the same interests and the same hobbies. The date goes really well, and you have a great time.
Yeah.
Just
I think probably like willingness to do things that that I need to do. Like if you're not afraid to you get dirty or whatever. Like you'll hop in the truck. Like we got to go to run some errands or something. Like you're not afraid to.
Okay.
Like for me, I like that.
That's what you're into.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin works with his hands. In some contexts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of somebody that's amenable and open is what I'm hearing you say. That has layers that can dress up, look nice.
Yeah.
But then it can kind of be
Relax.
cool and operate in a different kind of space. So let me ask you this: what do you think? Is it okay if a woman approaches you, or is that kind of a turnoff? Do you want to kind of be the pursuer? Are you okay if kind of a woman reaches out and kind of shows attention, affection, or interest? But how do you interpret that?
I don't mind actually.
Okay.
I mean that's pretty cool. I mean this generation. These girls are they're aggressive. They really are.
highly motivated.
Yes,
highly motivated.
Yes. When they zone in what they want, they go after it. I'm like, all right. Love to see it.
So you're okay with that? All right. How about you, Sis?
I can get kind of shy with
You're
that. I'm a little bit more reserved with that.
Okay.
I don't know. I like a little bit of it. Like I like to, if you're interested, show that you're interested.
Sure.
But just traditionally, like I would like to be
You like to chase.
the pursuer.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You don't want to get proposed to.
Nah.
Yeah, man. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. All right. And I know you guys both a little bit. These are both, truly committed Christian men. How important is, spirituality? Like, how do you check for that? How do you look for it? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, as you're kind of looking at things and weighing things.
I would say outside of going to church together, which is a major plus.
Okay.
I would say the little things like having the devotionals together,
Yeah.
or having a prayer time together. Like, those are the little things that really make the relationship successful. Because if you build a strong spiritual foundation with her, then the rest of the relationship is going to flourish.
Yeah.
And, it makes a huge difference when they are, a Christian and they believe in certain
for
things
sure.
that you do. Because that way, when you deal with individuals who aren't on the same mindset as you are, who don't believe in certain things, then it makes the relationship even harder. Because it's like, can I invite you to church? Like, can I? You don't want to be in that situation. So now I understand when I talk about being equally yoked.
For sure. For sure. It definitely does. I feel like as I've gotten older, I start to appreciate that aspect more. Versus, like when you're younger, you just like, if somebody looks good, like you're attracted to them. I feel like right now, like there's certain fundamental beliefs that we need to be the same on. It's just like, having Christ at the head. I feel like if we believe the same thing spiritually, like then a lot of the other things will take care of themselves. Like that is a non-negotiable, and like the rest of the things can be negotiated. But like if Christ is the center of both of our lives, then a lot of the other things I feel like will kind of be blended in.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
So let me ask you this. So when you're talking about mentioning your non-negotiables, how far into dating relationships are you like, this is it? Like you come in day one. Are you having kids? No. You just where do you come in and put those down? Talk that out.
I feel like that is a good question.
It is.
Because I feel like sometimes you can be too fast with it. I've experienced that before, especially like when you finally come to the point to where you've established them.
Sure.
Like you're like, okay, like this is what I stand for. And then you can be too fast to be like, all right, I'm on it.
Yeah.
So I think that you kind of got to get to know someone, and develop a relationship, and kind of, you can do that through conversation, and you can just asking different questions, you can kind of figure some of those things out instead of just like giving them a quiz. Yeah, for real.
I would probably say, it takes some time. I would say maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe.
Yeah, like that's
that should give you enough time to really
without being awkward with it.
Yeah, get an analyzation of things. So.
Quick question I want to ask. So, I'm not that either of you are trying to propose or be married today or tomorrow or anything like that, but when you kind of hear the phrase wife material, right? That's somebody that I would consider being my wife. What are like 2 to 3 things that in your mind, this constitutes wife material? Like, I remember, PJ, there was a time where I just, as I was getting to know my wife, Gianna, there was just something about, there was a peace about her that, I was just like, I can come home to this every day. Like, obviously to me, she was physically attractive, personality, but there were just certain things that began to stand out and just separated her from the pack, where I was like, okay, I don't need to see anything else. Like, I'm good. Like, what are some of those things that you look at and say? So for me, one of those things was just like, man, I was just like, she adds peace to my world. My world is chaotic. It's fast paced. It's intense. But man, she brings peace where there is chaos and disharmony. But that was just one of a number of things. But like, what are some things for you that like, man, this is like wife material, and you'll know it when you see it?
Man, I would probably say I would have to agree with you on that piece. The supporting aspect of it, and I would say consistency.
Consistency.
Yeah, the consistency.
What kind of consistency?
How you started off talking and everything, like how she was. If she remains that way, I know not every day is going to be the best. I get that, but I want to. There's a reason why I felt for you, and if that is maintained and that's how she is, then I want that, because I would do the same for her. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, I would also say consistency, probably grace. Just
all right. So what does that mean? Unpack it just a little bit.
Okay. Right. So just through difficult circumstances, you know, just the way that, you know, that we deal with each other.
Sure. Yeah.
Just being able to grow with each other.
Gives you room to grow.
Yes. And like, I feel like as a part of that grace, kind of, you know, not necessarily us thinking the same way, you know, like us having different perspectives on, you know, different topics to be able to grow, you know, like
she complements
yes,
you
we
in
complement
different
each
ways.
other.
Yeah.
You know, so if we both think the same way, then we'll never grow. So I think that probably grace and, you know, being complimentive.
Okay.
Makes sense.
I like that. Yeah.
As we get ready to wrap up, Pastor, how important do you think it is for people to be in alignment when we're making these deal breakers and when we're looking for that better half?
No, I think it's really, really critical. I mean, I think a big part of it is, you know, when we look at, you know, successful marriages, we tend to kind of really talk in very sappy language, you know, chemistry and romance and, you know, butterflies, so on and so forth. But that's really not what sustains you long term. So that, you know, it's shared values. It's a common worldview. It's like, all right, we are both agreed that we're trying to land in the same destination.
Yeah.
And so because we're headed to the same destination, again, we're able to take the same roads without conflicting one with another. And I just think that, you know, when you kind of have, you know, in the Bible, the book of Amos says, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? All right. And so I just think that one of the things is you have to want the same thing. Like a man and a woman, they both have to want children. A man and woman have to both prioritize spirituality, or together they say this is not really a value for us. I think both parties have to say, all right, this is what we value concerning money. You know, so I just think alignment, compatibility, a singleness of heart is critical for the path going forward. And see, what we tend to do is we kind of put those things ahead of those common worldviews, you know, like romance and sentiment and love and butterflies. But those things actually flow out of, you know, a oneness and a commonality of thought and ideal and principle.
Well, thank you for that closing thought. I appreciate you gentlemen today.
Yeah.
And we'll turn it over to the ladies and see what they have to say.
See what they got to say.
And a special thank you to the gentlemen for that great discussion on deal breakers. We now have our ladies here that are going to weigh in on the deal breaker discussion. And before we start, I just want to hear your opinion. You know, a lot of times when women talk about deal breakers, the first thing they will say to single women is, you are being way too picky. How do you feel? I saw the How do you feel? We'll go with you, Sydney, because you reacted first. How do you feel about that statement? You can't have too many deal breakers because you're being way too picky.
I can have as many deal breakers as I need to get what I need, you know. I feel like it's not fair when guys can have all the deal breakers in the world, but we have to limit ours. I feel like I can have exactly what they have. Yeah.
What about you, Rochelle?
Agreed. I think it's within reason, because when you're dating, you're trying to figure out, you know, who you're dating and what they bring to the table. So it's like, if I'm certain about what I bring or what I need, and I communicate that, you know, it's like, I respect yours, you respect mine. Let's see how that works.
Right.
Now, do you have tiers to your deal breakers? Like, do you have some where you're just like, well, you know, this is okay as long as blank? Or are all of them number one? Do they come like 10 being the worst and 1 being the least? How does that work when you all are dating with the tiers to deal breaking?
For me, I don't think it's in tiers. It's more or less like, okay, let's see what you're talking about and let's go from there. And I'm observing because it's over time. So even though I may have one, for me, if I'm communicating certain things and you have enough emotional intelligence to see that and shift, I'm like, okay, I can work with that. But if not, and it's like, okay, duly noted.
Right.
So maybe you're not my person. So, you know.
Maybe you're not my person.
Yep.
Yes, that may be a mantra that a lot of women need to carry in the dating world. What about you, Sydney? Are there tiers to your deal breaker?
I wouldn't say there are tiers. I think there are some deal breakers that can be overcome. You know, like she said, if you have enough emotional intelligence or there are things you're willing to actively work on consistently, then yeah, sure, of course. But I wouldn't say tiers, just some that can be non-deal breakers and then some that are just flat out never gonna work.
That makes sense. Now, before I kick another question to you all, and it's going to probably be a little harder than what you anticipated, I do want to ask you, Gianna, when you were dating, and not when you were dating the person you are currently married to, was there a moment when you met a deal breaker? How long did you let that go before you were just like, you know what, maybe you're not the one?
Ooh, not long.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay.
Once I saw what I needed to see and the person showed me who they were, there was no more, there was nothing left to see.
Yeah.
I didn't need to explore that anymore. I didn't need to see anything else. And I had a clear sign from God that you're not my person. And so, yeah, it was good to just kind of cut that off and not waste that person's time or mine, you know.
So then to the ladies, as you all are dating and even giving advice to other ladies that are dating, do you have a time limit? Do you, how do we know the difference between a deal breaker that we may see if this can be overcome or when you're just like, absolutely not, we're done, the date is over, lose the number. Yeah. Where are you in that?
And I think the funny thing is we were kind of talking about this in the lobby. About time. And it's like, it depends on where you are in the dating. So if you're intentionally dating, it's definitely, I'm making that observation and I'm paying attention. And if it's like, no, I don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
Gianna said that. I don't want to waste time. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. But of course, if you're just casually dating, then it's like, we're having fun. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. So, but for me, I'm intentionally dating, so it matters. So once again, I'm observing. If you're given that opportunity to kind of fix that thing and you're not really picking up on it, it's like, okay, I'm noting that, and so next. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on. You're not my person.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep saying that.
Yeah.
What about you, Sydney?
Oh, listen, I'm cut off queen. Like, I'll be honest with you. I am quick to ghost someone. I am quick. Like, if it's not going to work, I know that within the first 10 minutes, this is not for me, you know? Because like she mentioned, I'm definitely intentionally dating. So I already know the things that I'm looking for, the things that, and not saying that you can find everything in the first time, but I think that we play games when we go through the process of, okay, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't want to do this, I don't want to, you know, and we just hold on to it. For what? Like, we're wasting time. I'm quick to be like, yeah, this is great, never call me again. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not wasting time like that. So
You said something key, and I think that's part of it is the growing process.
Yeah.
Because when you first start out dating, it's like you do put up with a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and then afterwards, it's like, no. And part of it is getting to know you. What I like, what I can tolerate, and being comfortable with the things about myself. And so as I grow in that, then I'm able to be more certain about my deal breakers. So it's like, that's not going to work. I've tried that before. I've been there before and done that. And it's like, I realize the pain and the hurt that I went through in doing that. And it's like, now that I'm older, it's like, nah, we don't want to do that anymore. I don't have time.
Yeah.
So you all mentioned like getting to know yourself, getting to know your deal breakers. What are some things that you all just in general find unattractive or as a deal breaker, just in general, that you're just like, no?
I think that the way a man carries himself, like without speaking, without ever opening his mouth, what I see first, regardless of what we say, that does matter, you know? So I'm looking at, okay, is your hair cut? If it's not cut, do you keep it neat, you know? Is your beard neat? Are your fingernails trimmed? You don't have to have name brand clothes, but are your clothes, do they fit nicely? Are you, you know, like, do you present yourself the way you want to be received? That's like the first thing for me. So if I look at you and I'm not feeling it, I mean, that's the truth, because you have to get past the physical to see all the other things. And if the physical's off-putting, it's like, I don't know.
But you know, some people, you know, I've seen some women who, you know, been able to transform. You
know? And I've been there, you know, and I've done that.
Great.
Yeah, I've definitely had projects. And right, because I did this project, got a 100% on it, and someone else reaped the benefits of that project, you know. So it's like, I kind of want you to be at least 75, 80%. You know, if we need to talk about a different kind of haircut or a different way to wear, you know, that, but I think that, you know, if within yourself, like if you're presenting yourself nicely, that means that you have confidence in yourself and in what you bring. So I look at that first.
And there's an aspect with yours, Sydney, that has a lot to do with like self-care.
Yes.
If you care enough about yourself, then that means that there is a confidence level there. I may not have to keep pulling you up every day and making you feel like you matter. You know, you're walking with that champion kind of walk.
Right.
You know you matter.
Right. Yeah. And if you are lucky enough to get with me, then that means that you're definitely. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you're lucky enough to have that experience, then that means that there's something within you. Like, I don't have to keep pulling you up, and you know what I mean. So I think that's also an important factor.
I love that. What about you, Rochelle? You're not gonna get out of that question.
Oh no. Well, actually, I was gonna add because we talked about this too.
We did.
And I said that people can put their best foot forward and sometimes go backwards when you get with them. So it takes time to kind of feel them out and see where they are, if that's genuine. Or if that's, I'm doing this to attract you.
Right.
So, but for me, I think it's somebody being too familiar too fast. You're already giving me pet names. And it's like, we haven't even gotten to that point yet. So give me a minute. And so it's like, and then you try to express it, but it's like you're not listening. And once again, it's like, okay, there's that deal breaker. Well, now we have to communicate that now this is not going to work. But even that was a learning process because nobody really taught us about dating. Something else we talked about in the lobby where nobody taught us about dating in the church. And so you're looking at it from the world's lens and how they're doing it. And it's like, how do we navigate this? What is okay? What's not okay? What do I put up with? What do I don't? And so unlearning a lot of things to relearn how to actually have relationships. And when we come into these dating situations, we often encounter people who have just as much growing to do as we do, which for me has presented the ability to have some grace with people, you know, and be able to give that, whether it be reassurance or, you know, constructive criticism, you know, to kind of help with that, but still at the end be like, okay, we're not going to work, but here are some things that, you know, I've gotten from engaging with you, and I hope you've gotten from engaging with me.
There's something we can learn and take into the next, so we're not having to relearn the same lesson over and over again.
Perfectly.
So, perfectly right. So here's a question I have, because this happened to me when I was dating. I ran into a deal breaker I didn't know I had. Has that happened to either one of you where you were just like, no, that's not a deal breaker for me, and then you were faced with it, you're like, oh, wait, no, it is. No, this is, I don't want to do this. What was that? If you either want to generally tell us or just flat out say, no, I didn't think this was going to bother me, and it bothered me, and I'm like, nope, can't deal with that at all.
Okay, I won't say I'm a clean freak, but I like things to be neat. I like them to be organized. And I thought, you know, perhaps this is just a me thing, because I can be over the top a little sometimes, I will admit. But I was dating someone who did not share in the organization. You know, they didn't care if their clothes were laying all over the floor. They didn't care if, you know, and that for me, I didn't think it would bother me as much as it did, but yeah, no, it was a deal breaker. Every time I come over to watch a movie or whatever, there's clothes on the floor, or like, come on. Yeah, you didn't even try. Like, this isn't gonna work.
It's gonna be a clean place.
Yeah, no, that's a deal breaker that I ran into, and yeah.
Rochelle, what was the one thing where you're just like, oh, that's shocking. I didn't know that I had this.
It's been a while, so I couldn't even come. It couldn't even come to mind. I was like,
I can't think of one.
No. Like I said, it was a growing process, and so now it's just like, okay. But yes, I'm glad that you brought that question up, because now it's even now. You know, even if you haven't been out there a while, there may be some that you encounter and you don't know. And so when it's like, okay, but I think I'm more equipped now to be able to handle it. Whereas before it might be like,
I'll let it slide.
Yes, but now it's like, no, let's have a conversation about that. Let's get a little curious about that. Is that an ongoing thing? Are you open to hearing some constructive criticism about that? Or is it, at this point, it's like, is it even worth addressing? Because that just might be who they are. And it's like, okay, I can accept that. I mean, accept it in that's who you are, but I don't think I could be able to accept that permanently, and be okay with, hey, we could just be friends, or maybe not. I'll see you around.
Maybe not.
But you know, I've also had things where they used to be deal breakers and now they're not. Like in my 20s, I was adamant about I do not want to date any man that has kids, okay? I don't have time, right? That was my, now in my 30s, I'm like, okay, I'm not opposed to it. How many kids? How many women? You know what I mean? Like, then what is your relationship with your kids? Because now for me, it's a deal breaker if you have children and you're not in their lives, or you're not, you know, you don't have a good relationship with them or their mom, then that's a deal breaker. So I have found that.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to add, especially to our singles that are watching, one of my favorite quotes is who I consider an older brother in the that's very close to our family, said that marriage doesn't change the tune, it turns up the volume. So a lot of times when you have these deal breakers that are just like, well, I'll let that slide, you kind of have to exacerbate that thing times 1,000 and still think in your head, is that something that, you know, I can deal with as, you know, if marriage is in the picture or down the line. And so it's good that if you know, discover that deal breaker, you're just like, I didn't know I had this, because dating, of course, has evolved, right? You mentioned something earlier, and I kind of want to touch back on that, because you said, you know, even in the church, they didn't tell us how to date. But we noticed, like, when we look back at some of the marriages or the models we saw for that, that wasn't something that we kind of want to, you know, we don't want to be a part of what they did there. And so we can kind of accept where we are, having evolved from that. So
I have a question to that point too, just thinking about when you're saying we weren't taught, you know, so what would you tell your younger self or a younger person that's just starting to date? Like, what would you tell them? How would you teach them how to date? What would be your number one tip?
For me, it's to be friends. Because as married women, you know what that's like. Sometimes you may not I don't love you, but I like you. So if I can like you as a person and get through those things that you're doing, then we can do this. But we're not taught that. It's that whole romanticizing thing. And so I guess that was one of the other things that was kind of a deal breaker. It's like, let's turn on the romance. And it's like, no, let's not do that, because I'm trying to see who you are.
Right.
Even though I get that you have that, and that's great. But for me, I need to see who you are. And all the, you know, characteristics and things, so I can make that better choice, because you may not always be that. It may not always be that. So definitely learning how to have friends and be friends, because you get to see in friendships and you know, through all the cycles, anger, frustration, you know, all that those types of things, which are solid for a marriage.
Absolutely. So as we kind of were still helping people navigate through their dating life or their dating world, one of the things that I sometimes like to mention to a lot of single people is that a lot of times you have to understand that just like the red flags that wave, red has actually 57 shades, right? So you may say a deal breaker, and then when something happens to you, you're just like, oh, well, I didn't list that, so I can't say that that's my deal breaker, when it might be a shade of the red flag that you mentioned early on. Did either of you ever experience that, where you were just like, I don't want a person that does this, and they kind of didn't do that specifically, but it was kind of like a derivative of that, or like a little bit of offshoot of that? How do you deal with that kind of thing in dating?
I think the best method is just to be upfront and be honest, you know? Like, I think, if I think about my deal breakers, a lot of my deal breakers have a lot to do with the things that I saw growing up, right? So when I'm dating someone and they might say something, and it's not necessarily in the same spirit that it was said, but it still triggered me because of that. So in those times, it's like I have learned, because I've not always been this way, but I have learned that it's a conversation. Hey, listen, this is how I grew up, or these are the things that I'm dealing with. When you said this, what did you mean? Or when you did this, what spirit did you do it in? Like I have to personally always ask myself that, because of the different things that I did experience, growing up. So that kind of shaped how I date, how I look at dating, what triggers me, what doesn't, what's a deal breaker, what isn't,
And I'm glad you brought that up, because it made me think of that when we were talking about deal breakers before.
Yeah.
When I was like, a lot of the ones that I had were because of what I was taught. Like my mom was a single mom, and it was like, don't date no man that's got kids. I saw her go through that. Have your own stuff. And so a lot of that shaped how I dated.
Yeah.
But like you said, those shades of gray. Okay, you can have kids, but how do you treat those children?
Yeah.
What's the relationship like with the mother of your children? All those things matter, because that person could be quality.
Yeah.
But just because they have children, you automatically just X them out. And so over time, like you said, those shades, you become more aware of them, and it's like, okay, let me process that.
Yeah.
Is that a me thing? Or is that a them thing? And being able to have that conversation and talk about it. But once again, those aren't things that we are really taught.
Yeah.
And because, for me, because I do therapy, it's like I have to help people unravel that.
Yeah.
And so it's funny how God works, because it's like, okay, you didn't necessarily do that, but I'm using you to help other people, but I'm still talking to you.
Right.
It's like, and it's like, oh, yeah, God, I see you. I don't like this, but I see what you're trying to get at here. And so learning those tools, help me be able to navigate that.
Yeah.
So
That's so good.
How important is it to be your whole self in order to understand the deal breakers that you have?
So important.
very.
Yeah.
I think that was like the biggest mistake that I did make in my 20s, dating, because that's what everybody else said. You're supposed to go to Oakwood, you got to find a husband when you get there, blah, blah, all this stuff. You go through all these things, you're like, I don't even like this. Like, I don't even like dating. This isn't fun. I don't want to get, you know what I mean? And I feel like, when it comes down to it, what you do in your 20s, you can't continue to do the same things in your 30s. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of things that I had to learn, like, okay, well, I am not a fan of a man that curses, like, mm-hmm. around me. It's fine if that's what you want to do and that's your life, but mm-hmm. around me, I'm not okay with that, right? Mm-hmm. But in my 20s, it's like, okay, you let that slip, now I'm like, okay, no, that's not, grow up, that kind of thing. Or like, not having ambition was a big thing. So it's like, okay, well, you're still in school, you're still trying to figure those things out. Now it's like, okay, no, But I also realized that I couldn't have those kind of deal breakers because I also didn't know what, myself. It took me a long time to figure out who I am. But you mentioned, like, when you know who you are and when you're fully your whole self, then you're able to give grace to other people that are trying to get there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest, like, transition in the dating. Like, you have grace when necessary.
Yes. When necessary.
When necessary, yes.
Absolutely. Rochelle, kind of as we wrap up here, how important is it? You mentioned just talking to people and helping them work through that. But, how important is it, or how much even as when you are helping people through that and you drive home, that you have to be a complete person in order to understand what you don't want? Mm-hmm.
And it's helping people unpack that. Yeah. Because just like I said, a lot of our deal breakers came from our environment. Yeah. And so unpacking that, well, what did that mean to you? How did that affect you? Mm-hmm. How does that affect how you engage men now or females now? Because you could come off very angry, very, standoffish. And so it's helping them unpack that. So it's like, now here are the tools that you can have so that you can have these conversations or not feel threatened. So that you can get what it is that you want. Because you're wanting a relationship, but you're like, I'm realizing I'm having these same types of relationships. So it's like, okay, let's look at the things that you're doing that are bringing you to that. And in speaking of the whole thing, oftentimes people have the misconception that it's like, well, I have to be totally whole to be in a relationship. Right. When that's not true, you're going to still have some pieces that are under development, and that's what somebody that God brings to you
Yes.
is going to help do. That's what marriage does. It's a constant mirror, and you get to shape that other person. But of course, it takes sacrifice. It takes you being gracious and willing to be able to do that. And so, you know, prayerfully, that's what the dating process. Well, the what's the term? the dating process. It will do when it's spirit led. And I always tell people that spirit led, because we can see things. And I know we've had lists.
Yeah.
At some point in time, I had a list. God helped me throw that away real quick. Real quick. And I was like, okay, God, so you know. So I'm waiting and trusting you because you can see what I can't see.
Yes.
Even though that person may be in church and doing this and this and this, you know the heart posture.
Yeah.
And so if I'm trusting you to present that, then I know I'm going to everything that I wanted. Because I know some of the questions we're talking about, you know, physical,
Yeah.
you know, and all those other things. And those are important, but God knows that. And if we submit that to him, all those things that we're asking for, we'll get.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll be in agreement. You know, we use that whole phrase, well, God knows the desires of my heart.
Yeah.
But what we miss sometimes that it's important that we are walking with God and talking with God constantly, and we will find ourselves desiring what he desires for us. And so he knows if our desires align, then he is going to send you somebody incredible, no matter who you are. So as we wrap up, ladies, Gianna, I know you and I have actually been married the same amount of time. What is a great thing to end on when we're giving advice, even from the other side of people who are still navigating this dating world?
I would just say being open to the spirit. I love what you said about being spirit led. One of the things that really made a difference for me was the peace that I felt in my spirit when I began dating my husband. I hadn't had that with anyone else. There was no peace. And listen to that peace. Listen to your spirit. Listen to, you know, what people say. You know, there were people coming to me saying, that's not the one, girl. And it dug me deeper in the wrong direction, because sometimes we feel like we know. But that last relationship with my now husband there was just a peace, because I was praying for him, and I was, you know, aligned with God and asking God to bring me my husband. I was like, I'm not dating anymore. The next person is going to be my husband. I'm not playing no more games. So just spirit-led dating, being in line with the spirit, that's the biggest thing. Because God does the choosing.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect way to end this segment. Spirit-led dating, having the peace that you have when dating, and believing that God is going to bring you the desires of your heart as long as you're walking with him. Thank you so much, ladies. We are now going to turn it back over to the Snells.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Listen, just want to say a word of thanks to our amazing panels. Ladies did a tremendous job. Our men did a tremendous job as well. Some great insights that were shared, and I hope that those who are at home were able to just draw something from those things that were, you know, espoused and kind of laid out as we kind of talked through the idea of deal breakers. But before we close, all right, we've been married. November will be 20 years for us. As we look back on it, you know, they kind of talked a little bit more specifically, subjectively. What are some just general deal breakers, like that, you know, anybody should be considering, weary of, or just on the lookout for?
Yeah, so one of the things that comes to mind for me is just unequally yoked, as the Bible calls it, or just kind of not being on the same page spiritually. It's really, really tough to kind of move forward with anything when you're not on the same page spiritually, because our spiritual oneness is like the foundation of our marriage, of our relationship. And so it's really important for me to be on the same page and not have that situation where we're constantly battling about what we believe.
I would probably add to that. You know, it's interesting because sometimes, you know, people experience infidelity in marriage. A lot of times I'm realizing is that infidelity didn't start after the marriage. There were acts of infidelity or unfaithfulness that started before the marriage and continued into the marriage. So I think that there are times where, you know, if a person is kind of showing a lack of commitment to the relationship, and they're being unfaithful, whether it's emotionally or physically, I think that should be a deal breaker, because one of the things I've learned is that marriage doesn't make problems go away. Marriage just makes those problems permanent. It makes them immortal. It makes them a part of your lived reality. So again, I just think if somebody's being unfaithful consistently, they've developed that as a pattern, that should be a deal breaker. I don't think that's something you should be trying to work out in a dating relationship, or you'll be working for it for the rest of your life as a married person.
Absolutely. Another one that comes to mind is just someone who is just verbally abusive, physically abusive.
Yeah.
You know, you're already seeing those lines crossed. And a lot of times people who are abusive, they try little things, you know.
Yeah.
So it may be a
Starts
name.
out subtle.
Yeah, it starts out subtle. So if you're seeing those subtle things, if you're seeing those things that make you cringe, make you uncomfortable, make you feel fearful or unsafe, it's time to kind of cut that off and not put yourself in that situation, because as we heard earlier, it's going to magnify times 1,000. So when you get married, so it's time to kind of make that a deal breaker.
Yeah, certainly. Probably one last thing I would throw out there, and it's not, it doesn't make anybody a bad person.
Yeah.
But I just think you have to be in the same season of life. When you're contemplating marriage, like, you may not need to be connected with somebody who's maybe just finishing school, just finding out who they are, still trying to kind of settle certain things.
Yeah.
You need somebody that's that's entering into a marrying season. Because I think what kind of creates tension is when somebody's heart is ripe, they're ready to take that step, and somebody's just kind of figuring it out. They're still in an exploration stage. Doesn't mean they're bad. They'll be a great husband and wife down the line. Or you just got to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to wait it out. But the problem is there's a huge risk with that.
Yeah.
You wait 3, 4, 5 years only for that person to say, I found myself. But as I found myself, you're not the one that I'm supposed to be with.
Right.
So I just think you want to kind of look at somebody that's in that same season of life. They reach a certain emotional maturity, maybe professional or financial, maturity, where they're ready to enter into a permanent covenant. So, just a few things, just wanted to lay out for those who are still searching, prayerfully looking at things and weighing things. And so we hope that today's presentation was helpful for you. Hopefully it was food for thought, provided some fertilizer for your path going forward. And so listen, as we wrap it up, we want to encourage you to make sure you join us next time for Point of View. We're going to be looking at different ways we can make deposits into both single and married couples, so that, we can have marriages and relationships that are not just relationships that we survive, but they're relationships that actually are able to thrive.
Yeah.
So listen, if you appreciate what you're receiving from Breath of Life each Saturday, each Sunday, each Wednesday night, we ask for your prayers. If today was helpful for you, do me a favor, copy the link, send it to somebody that they might be blessed as well. But then lastly, right now, up on the screen are some ways that you can give. You can give at our website, www.breathoflife.tv. You can call our office. The number is stated there below, and you can make your donation by phone. You can text the phrase "give to BOL TV" to the number stationed there, or you can do old school. You can mail it. You see our PO box number here, right here, where you can mail your gift. And then lastly, what you can do, the easiest thing you can do right now is you can Cash App your gift of any size to $ Breath of Life TV. Again, every dime you give goes right back into the ministry so that we can continue to produce gospel-filled, spirit-anointed content, pushing it out into a fallen world so that people know that Jesus saves and they're aware that Jesus is coming again. So again, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Point of View.
Thank you.
Yeah.